Hello, and welcome to whatever we're calling this. Hopefully I will figure out a name for it by the time I upload it, and whatever I do end up calling it, if you have a better idea, please tell me, and then if it's good, I'll change it to that. Anyway, this is the start of a new recurring feature on the second channel that will come out about a week after each regular video on the main channel. So the situation is, every single time I ever release a video, I always get a ton of people, whether in the comments section, which I don't tend to read, or on Twitter or whatever, they'll always be saying, why didn't you talk about this? Or how about these other movies that you didn't discuss? How do you feel about those? And just people asking a lot of questions about the video. And so I thought it might be nice to do something about all those questions that I don't normally answer and actually let the audience's voices be heard to an extent, but also I still don't want to read the comments section. So what we did was I asked beloved former intern, now community manager for the channel, Emma Logsden, to go through the comments section and find just any comments that seemed worth responding to, that it raised interesting points about the videos, asked good questions, and collect those for me. And then also over on our Discord server, which you can only access if you are a member of the Patreon, so there's an incentive to join, we have an Ask Patrick channel where people can ask questions, and those questions will be prioritized in these videos. So this show is part regular Q&A for people who are members of the Patreon and Discord, and also part talkback response, me just answering your feedback about the new video. Anyway, let's see what you guys asked about. Okay, our first question from Juhana says, what is your favorite type of apple? I've never really thought about that before. Like, Macintosh is pretty good. I think that's a boring answer. That's like the most common kind of apple. Not Granny Smith. Those are fine. I'll eat them, but they're not my top choice. Let's say Macintosh. Pinball Witch says, go-to childhood comfort movie. Edited because I realize you've already made your love for Paddington quite clear. Lol. This might sound weird, but I think when I was a kid, it was probably like Batman Forever, which I just watched endlessly, like when I was 8 years old. Also, Batman Mask of the Phantasm. Yeah, I watched those way more than normal kids movies, like Disney movies and stuff like that. I just loved being in the warm embrace of Bruce Wayne and his quest for justice. Sambo is Person asks, how do you approach writing a topic for a video, specifically a large topic like the Coppola video, for example? Okay, so my approach for a video essay is not that much different to what I've talked about before when making narrative projects. I always have to figure out what is like the core central idea that I'm trying to communicate with the video. Basically, what is the thesis? And this can be tough when it's a giant topic like the entire 50+ year career of Francis Ford Coppola. What is the thesis about that? And so when it comes to these giant careers, what I like to do is try to find the narrative and the through line through the entire thing. Like basically, what is the story there? And so I tend to like pull back and look at the timeline of their whole career and see, okay, what are turning points in their careers? What are recurring themes? Are there different eras of their career? And with Coppola, it broke down really easily where each decade was really a distinct chapter of his career, where the movies made in that decade kind of fit together, and then there was some kind of turning point, and then the next decade was a new chapter. And with Coppola, there were the recurring ideas and themes of him trying to innovate cinema, and also family, and movies about family, his collaborations with family, impact of family on his career. And so you're looking at this story with these clear chapter breaks and major like narrative beats that also have these major themes, and then that's all the stuff to talk about. Samuel asks, any chance for a restock on the OG Charles pins? I honestly didn't know those were sold out, so that's cool. I'm not sure, honestly. The truth is that because the Charles era is concluded, you know, we're not making a point of like making new Charles merch. We're hoping to just sell everything that we've got and move on. That said, I don't know. I'll ask about it. Alex Olgwin says, Patrick, are you getting into wrestling? Do you recommend it? This is a reference to, if anyone follows me on Instagram, you might have noticed last week I was posting stories from an AEW match here in New York at Arthur Ashe Stadium. I wouldn't say I'm getting into wrestling. So the situation is, my very good friend Siddhant Adlaka, who is a co-writer on the videos these days, is a big wrestling fan. And if you saw the RRR video, you know he likes sneaking in wrestling references like into the essays, but also he's kind of on a quest to get me, and not just me, but like our other friends who like me aren't into wrestling, to get us all into wrestling. He's invited me over to like watch wrestling at his place like a couple times. Usually he'll like have like, I don't know, like an AEW pay-per-view on, and then we'll invite a bunch of people over. It's almost like a party. And then he invited a whole gang of us to the live show like a week ago. I have had a lot of fun with all of these, and it's nice now that I actually know who some of the wrestlers are, so I can like keep track of things. I'm like, oh yeah, this guy, he's fun. I like it when he shows up. I don't think I'm ever going to be a person who like watches wrestling on their own, who like follows it regularly and will be like, ooh, I'm gonna watch the new episode or whatever. But when someone else organizes, like, you know, going to or watching a wrestling show and invites me along, I'll probably go, because I get the appeal now, and I wouldn't say I'm into it, but I have fun when I tag along. Cal asks, favorite sandwich? Recently, whenever I see a fried chicken sandwich on a menu, I tend to order it. Does that even count? Does it have to be like a sandwich you can get at a bodega? Because it really kind of varies. I mean, I don't know, like a big thick like turkey sub is always good. There are my two answers that I don't feel very definitive on. Isn't this great? Aren't you glad that you tuned in to watch me struggle to figure out what my favorite sandwich is? Anyway, moving on. The Duke of Tumwater asks, best Hannibal Lecter, Anthony Hopkins or Mads Mikkelsen? The Silence of the Lambs is my favorite Hannibal Lecter thing, adaptation, whatever. I haven't read the books. I know that's a boring answer, but what can I say? That movie is so good. The other things that Hopkins played Hannibal Lecter in aren't great, while Mads Mikkelsen, all 3 seasons of that show are really good, and he's really good in all of it. I might have to say Mikkelsen. Even though I'd rather watch Silence of the Lambs again, I think he has the highest batting average, Mikkelsen. Poljancic asks, now I feel like if you ever watched our annual Christmas Q&A videos that I do with my sister Mary, and she's always trying to pronounce weird usernames, I just feel like her. Now I know how Mary feels every year. Anyway, any underrated highlights from the Batman post-crisis comics read? Ooh, man. If you don't follow me on Twitter, I've been doing this project for a while, just for fun, for like the past year, of just trying to read, like, I don't want to say all of post-crisis Batman, because I've read the majority of Batman comics from like 1999 until today. But specifically like late 80s, early 90s is what I've been focusing on. The Alan Grant, Norm Breyfogle stuff is really, really good. The amount of stuff they add to Batman mythology in a really short amount of time, stuff that I assumed had been around for much longer. Like as someone who grew up with the animated series, I assumed the ventriloquist was created in like the 50s or so. No, he shows up for the first time in the late 80s, like those early issues when Alan Grant was co-writing, I think, Detective Comics with John Wagner. Like every issue is just like new villain, new villain, new villain. And like a bunch of these are villains who like stuck around. I mean, they did also add Harold the Hunchback, who like repairs the Batmobile. He's not great, but a lot of that stuff is really, really good, and Norm Breyfogle is such a good artist. Dr. Turkey says, sorry if this is a dead horse / tired ground, but how do you feel about Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man series, especially in regards to the latest video about Spider-Man? So the Garfield movies, which I honestly have not watched since they were in theaters. My very simple take on them is that the cast is really good across the movies. Actually, Dane DeHaan is miscast as Harry Osborn. Dane DeHaan is often miscast. Like Valerian, Dane DeHaan is very well cast in Gore Verbinski's A Cure for Wellness. Other than him, the casts are pretty great. Andrew Garfield is a very good Spider-Man and Peter Parker. He and Emma Stone have really good chemistry. Consistently great casting. The second movie has my favorite Spider-Man suit of all the movies. It also the movie looks incredible. Dan Mindel shot the hell out of it. I think the scripts for both those movies are kind of garbage and also make Peter Parker like a weird asshole. There are so many bad ideas in those movies, whether it is the bizarre obsession with Peter Parker's parents and making them like these secret important people and this whole like destiny angle. It sucks. The thing at the end of the first movie where he promises George Stacy, who's dying, that he will stay away from his daughter to keep her safe. And then the movie ends with him being like, the best promises are the ones you can't keep. I don't really like either one of those movies. And I think the scripts for both of them are pretty much disasters. I think there are bright spots in there. Like in Amazing Spider-Man 2, anytime Spider-Man is like swinging around and just doing Spider-Man stuff, like that armored truck sequence at the beginning with Paul Giamatti, beautiful, perfect Spider-Man. The final like 2 minutes of Amazing Spider-Man 2, fantastic. Wonderful. I think Paul Giamatti's The Rhino is a lot of fun. But like the bulk of like the main like bulk of the movie, the actual story and stuff, dumb. I don't like it very much. I've had no desire to revisit those movies. Ooh, a question about the new video. The texting at the end of the latest video, is there some kind of hidden meaning behind the typos, or is that just you being bad at typing on your phone? Okay, so if you remember, the final shot of the video was a close-up of a phone as I am texting Matt. The truth is that the exposure on that shot was like an f2, so there was a razor-thin depth of field. And to get my phone in focus in the shot, I had to hold it in a weird way where I couldn't really see it properly, and it was like, felt awkward to hold. So I'm trying to kind of type while I can't really see the phone well, and I'm also holding my arms in a weird way that's uncomfortable. That is why there are a bunch of typos. No other reason. And final question from the Discord before we move over to the comments section. Swivelmaster asks, this might just be a video topic, but I'm curious for your thoughts on what's new in filmmaking in the last decade. Where are the frontiers? I recall reading somewhere that James Cameron credited Sam Raimi as being the only filmmaker and sometimes do something truly new with the camera in his Evil Dead films. And now we have Michael Bay and the Russo brothers using crazy drone shots to varying effect. There's also the question of representation in Hollywood. Bros, Moonlight, but that's new to Hollywood, not to film in general. I think you get what I'm saying. This is, I think, too big a question for a simple Q&A video. I also have to just think about that a lot. I'm sorry I don't have an answer for you, Swivelmaster, but I will say that you have planted a seed in my head, and I will probably just start thinking about this. No promises that it'll become a video, but I'm gonna think about it. Okay, comments section. Matt Geiger asks, I'm a little late to the game in watching your videos. It's okay. Happy to have you here. But I'm excited for the deep dive. How many seasons do you have? Where's the place to start? That is a good question. We only started calling the show Seasons at the start of 2020. And that season ran from January 2020 until May 2021. And then in June 2022 had the feature-length season finale, Night of the Coconut, streaming now on Nebula. Go watch it. And then we have a new season that just started. But then also all the stuff like in between there for a year wasn't technically part of the season. According to the people who put the videos on IMDb, there are like 8 seasons of the show, which I don't think is accurate. And I do wonder, does the stuff pre-2020, when we weren't calling them seasons, still count as a season? I don't know. Hey, you guys, tell me tell me what you think I should do. As for where's the place to start, you can start anywhere. The videos pretty much stand alone except for like small elements of them. But also I would say the playlist right on the front of the channel that says the previous season, in parentheses, the Charles Saga, just start there. Jikuryu, I probably mispronounced that, I'm sorry, says, it feels like all the media essayists I watch already know each other, so I'm going to assume you're aware of overly sarcastic productions. I'm sorry, I don't know who that is. Sorry to this channel. I don't watch a lot of YouTube. I know some other media essayists. I am not familiar with that channel. I'm sorry. I feel bad. Who are they? They have 2 million subscribers? Well, you know what? I think they're doing fine without me knowing about them. Also, wow, look, they're very popular and I'm just an idiot who doesn't know what's going on YouTube. Anyway, they did a recent discussion of Superman and why it matters that he cares. This Spider-Man is included in and by his community angle really meshes well with Superman is most interesting when he's saving people. I've read a couple stories where superheroism is a distraction from the problems ordinary people face instead of a solution, and now I'm recognizing that same all flash, no feeling in our superhero movies. The MCU is fun and interesting, but it doesn't inspire hope. Okay, this is a big, complicated issue. You could write books about it on, superhero fiction is a complicated thing. You can do a lot of things with it. I like a lot of different takes on superheroes. I do think that a lot of the time having a normal human component to superhero stories is a good thing. A thing with the MCU is that in most cases they don't have secret identities, which is like a staple of superhero fiction. And I get why that's the case in that universe they've created. There isn't really a need for them. But the thing with secret identities is it usually means that, okay, the superheroes have more of, a separation between superhero life and personal life. And in their personal life, they have a supporting cast of characters who are regular people. And I do think that's important. It's important for the characters to know regular people because those are the people that they are ostensibly, dedicating their lives to protecting. They need that tether to humanity. And then there's stuff like Marvels and Astro City, both by Kurt Busiek. I literally just happen to have that there. And those are both about superheroes, but as viewed from the perspective of regular people. Like, look, I think it's important that Bruce Wayne shows up in Batman stories. I'm not going to give you a whole extra essay right here, but yeah, short answer, human beings and normal people matter. Okay, a couple people brought up the ending New York battle, or the Battle of New York in the first Avengers movie. T-Bot Alpha points out that it was originally supposed to have this narrative thread following that waitress who does pop up a couple times, and like her perspective through the battle, but that stuff got cut out. And that is true. And he says the MCU has been cutting out normal people right from the beginning. When talking about the MCU, this is, a thing that I want to carefully word. Even though that part got cut down in the final movie and you didn't get like her perspective through the entire sequence, like, look, I know it's not in style to praise Joss Whedon, but I do have to point out one good creative decision that I think he made in the first 2 Avengers movies. Even though that part got cut down from what he originally intended it to be, those 2 movies are much more interested in just portraying regular people and civilians than almost any other Marvel movies, and especially any of the stuff once like Whedon left and the Russos kind of took over everything. Like the big battles of those 2 Avengers movies are set in populated areas. They devote a lot of screen time to the Avengers actually like rescuing people. And I do think that matters. A few years ago in 2019, for the 3-part MCU thing that I made, I rewatched all the Marvel movies, and when you watch them all back to back, you really do notice how, those Avengers movies actually seem to kind of be interested in normal people, and then, that goes away, and then we just never see normal people ever again. So, Louis Cortazar Says, the only other post-9/11 New York-based movie I can think of is 2003's Elf. Mostly that it shows the magic in the mundane, normal that is life in the city at the moment in the present. Obviously, Elf doesn't really have any direct connection to 9/11. It came out 2 years later. But you know what? Let's just say right now, Elf, one of the great post-9/11 New York movies. I'm sure someone could write like an academic paper about how Elf is really about 9/11 and like Santa's sleigh like crashing and being unable to fly in the climax is like, you know, New Yorkers' spirit being like all their hope being gone, and they like regain their hope in the aftermath, and that's Santa being able to fly again. I don't know, someone go write that. Nathan Thomas asks, anyone know what camera Patrick uses? Nice work, fam. Thank you. It used to be all my videos for the past several years were shot on the Sony a7 III. And then, just a few weeks ago, for the first video of the season, I upgraded. I got a Sony a7S III because I wanted that 10-bit color, and that's what we're shooting this on right now. And then the movie, Night of the Coconut, streaming now on Nebula, go watch it, was shot on a Blackmagic Pocket 6K Pro that we actually did use for one scene in the new video, the one where I show up at my old apartment and it's all red, because we shot that scene back in April. So we got multiple comments here about the music in the video, which of course, as I'm sure you all know by now, is by the great Brian Matolius, who I'm constantly aware of how lucky I am to know him and to have him work on these videos, because he's really good. And yeah, he did take the score in a bit more of an Angelo Badalamenti direction, which I think is real cool. So, pointing out the Twin Peaks vibes, you're not wrong. Jimmy Ryan asks, I can't watch this without watching your movie, can I? I mean, you can. Like, if you want to. The essay still functions the same. Would I like you to watch my movie? Night of the Coconut? Streaming now on Nebula? Yes, I would. I would like all of you to watch it. I worked really hard on it. I think it's pretty fun. Lou Yorick says, great video, but I think there is another city of importance to the trilogy, Detroit. Raimi was from here. Lou, I take it you are a Detroiter. Raimi was from here, well north of 8 Mile, and that working class soul full of grit, the one that inspires the sense of community and resilience, that is us, baby. The people versus elites you talked about sure seems like a manufacturing union. Raimi even said back in 2009 he might shoot some of Spider-Man 4 here. When he shot Oz and Pontiac, he visited his childhood stomping grounds. Raimi is from Detroit. I honestly am not an expert on how much it influenced his take on Spider-Man, but I do apologize for not talking more about Detroit in a video that was about New York. Dylan the Villain, says, I would say Netflix's Daredevil is really good at showing everyday people as well, like that prison guard in the pilot, Brett Mahoney, Father Paul Lantum, Claire Temple, Ray Nadim, and many one-off characters. I only remember Claire Temple of those people. That show is very good at making you feel like you were on the streets with them. You're not wrong. The whole take on the Marvel Netflix shows was they are street-level characters and street-level stories and, minimal superhero-y stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, most of the casts of all of those are just regular people. Also, I never watched season 3 of Daredevil. It's funny how back then when they were on, I was always like, these shows are too long. The season should all be like, 9 episodes. They're dragging and stuff like that. And now I watch the Disney Plus Marvel shows. I'm like, now I have different problems and I kind of, miss the Netflix ones. Anyway, the lesson here is that nothing will ever make me happy. Jason Guarnieri says, I think the closest any recent superhero film has gotten to that human connection is Spider-Man Into the SpiderVerse. It's not quite the same as the Raimi films, but the fact that I can remember the teacher, the school security guard, the bagel lady, and more than a few citizens is closer to it than anything in the MCU right now. I mean, yeah, Into the SpiderVerse, very good movie. And I think that really just speaks to the crazy attention to detail in that movie and the effort put into every little thing and like cramming so many just fun elements into every shot. Yeah, good movie. Excited for the sequels. Josephine Blum says, I just want to say glad to have you back. Thank you. You're one of the few video essayists I still watch. Also, your production value was amazing in this video. Everything about your filmmaking has improved since you shot the movie. Very few people on this channel, I assume you just mean YouTube, impress me with this kind of cinematic polish, but you take the cake. Hats off to you and the crew. Thank you. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. You know what? I probably have gotten better at filmmaking since making the movie, because that was, you know, a hard, intense experience. I will say, just in general, the videos are a fun place to like experiment and play around with filmmaking stuff, since you have to work really fast and the stakes are lower than if you're making a whole movie. So just be like, and also I can just kind of be indulgent, like, you know, I can go, I want to do a shot where we're driving down the FDR with a camera mounted to the outside of the car, looking in through the outside and it's sunset, because I think it'll be cool. And yeah. Anyway, thank you, Josephine. Sean Green says Star Wars, at least the original trilogy, has a similar secret ingredient. From the denizens of the cantina to the other pilots making the run on the Death Star, the galaxy feels like there is more happening off screen. I contrast this with Star Trek, where the only people that matter are the members of the main cast. Now, Sean, I should say, so I'm not a Star Trek expert at all. I am actually kind of an idiot when it comes to Star Trek. I've not seen very much. But I know some like really intense Star Trek fans, and I feel like they might take issue with what you just said because, and again, I'm not an expert, but aren't like most episodes of Star Trek about going down to different planets and like visiting like new groups of people and like meeting new people in every episode? I think. I don't know. I'm not an expert. People in the comments, feel free to yell at Sean, but be nice. But I can say that a thing that people have always loved about Star Wars is that, you know, the galaxy feels very lived in, and like there's countless stories just, you know, around every corner and every bar. It's just, it's a, you know, there's a huge, like, vibrant population, which I believe is an expression that I used many times in the Spider-Man video. Moving on. CJM868, Cody, says, I would say leading the charge of renewing Raimi's Spidey's popularity was Reddit's r/Raimi memes. The Bully Maguire videos are a more recent thing stemming from that. You're probably right. I'm not a big Reddit person, neither am I, but that said, we do have a subreddit where you can talk about all these videos and this video, r/Thrillums. It's a good place. More people should hang out there. Anyway, it seems like the meme subs have done a lot for certain fandoms like Spider-Man and the Star Wars prequels. People get back on board via jokes, but that leads to either rediscovering a fondness for the subject of the memes or building a connection through familiarity. Other factors usually help the other along, though, like the general fatigue setting in with the MCU and some people's dissatisfaction with recent Star Wars movies or series. I think you're actually totally right. All of those prequel memes over the years, like, people went from being angry about, like, Anakin Skywalker and sand, and now they kind of love it, and it's because of memes. It does kind of make you wonder what other, like, formerly maligned or disliked things will, you know, become beloved thanks to memes. I mean, I guess they tried to make it happen with Morbius, but, you know, it doesn't really work. Bedinsis says, I expected there to be a comparison to Watchmen, since that is a comic about superheroes where at the end, spoiler alert for Watchmen, you've all read it, a huge chunk of New York is destroyed by the villain, and the author invested much energy in making the non-supers have a life of their own, and right before the attack they gathered together to stop a street brawl, to show the spirit of New York, and how the film adaptation largely ignored that aspect and minimized or removed all the non-supers' roles. I mean, you are not wrong. I could have mentioned Watchmen. The thing is, getting into the comics, there are like a million examples that I could have used. Again, Astro City are Marvel's, which also has Spider-Man in it. If you want superhero stories that are about regular people, you can't really do better than this. At the end of the day, this is one of those situations where the video is already pretty long, and even though there are like 100 other examples that are relevant or connected in some way that I could mention, there just isn't time for everything. Distant Comets says, welcome back. Thank you. This is a really interesting insight. Now that you pointed out, the Raimi movies look like the old Law and Order episodes. Tons of stories happening, and oh, there goes Spider-Man again, like seeing a celebrity at the grocery store or walking the dog. Fun fact about me, I have never seen an episode of any Law and Order show. So feel free to, cancel me now. You can lose all respect for me. I'm a monster. But it's true. That said, based on what I know about Law and Order, that seems correct. Rayphilia says, one big everyday people you didn't mention was the kid Henry from Spider-Man 2. Heroes have the biggest impact on kids, and that scene shows the effects Peter's decisions have on kids. Then, quoting what Aunt May says there. You are correct. I don't know why we didn't mention Henry. Yeah, Henry's an important kid. He's helping Aunt May out. He loves Spider-Man. I think we used like a shot of him like in the B-roll, but didn't mention him by name. So sorry, Henry. We love you. Okay, multiple people mentioned here, or they theorized, that the reason that we don't see as many like small side characters in these movies is for budgetary reasons. And my response to this is that perhaps in the case of like smaller budget movies or TV shows, maybe that is the case. That they don't want to deal with having to hire too many actors with speaking roles and deal with like residuals and stuff like that. So maybe they cut those. That said, I do not think that is the reason for this happening in Marvel Studios movies. Marvel Studios is not hurting for money. Many of their movies are some of the most expensive movies ever made. And if they were really trying to like pinch pennies and like keep costs down, they could, I don't know, find a way to make the movies that doesn't involve shooting the whole movie and then going back and rewriting and reshooting half the movie and then like forcing every VFX company in the world to like work crazy overtime hours. That would probably help keep the budgets down. I don't think people are handing in scripts that have like a bunch of fun little one-line characters and Feige is going, get those out of there. We can't afford to put in a guy eating pizza in this scene. I don't think that's the case. Because genuinely, if you look at the movies, you could see that like when Whedon was making them, he was interested in putting in like, regular people. And then other filmmakers weren't interested. I think I really think it just comes down to the people making the movies aren't very interested in that. That's just me. I could be wrong. Kevin Feige, feel free to like post in the comments section explaining that this is all just because you can't afford to hire some like day players. Okay, and our final question from Robert Wallace. He says, I think you've also hit on why Burn Notice was one of my favorite shows of that decade, actually. Bruce Campbell, of course, is amazing, but that's beside the point. Michael Weston is a spy, like James Bond or Jason Bourne, but he's constantly interacting with, meeting, and helping ordinary people, and using his tradecraft not just to try and recover his lost career, to solve the larger problem and navigate the world he knew that turned against him, but also just to do good for people who need it, when they find themselves in too deep for whatever reason. James Bond could never. Robert, congratulations. You are the first person that has ever told me they've watched the show Burn Notice. I was actually convinced it didn't really exist. I thought USA just made all these fake promos for a show that wasn't real and just aired them for years as like a big hoax, maybe for tax purposes. But I guess it's real. Who knew? Anyway, that's the end of this video. Still trying to figure out what I'm calling it. We'll be back a week after the Snyder video comes out. Gotta get back to working on that now. Anyway, goodbye. Thank you for watching. Follow me on social media platforms. Join the Patreon so that you can ask questions in the Discord server. And also watch Night of the Coconut, streaming now on Nebula. It's great. Also pre-order our vinyl soundtrack. Goodbye.